I'd be happy to introduce her.
Okay.
Thank you, President Phil. So today, I am very happy to have Amanda Whitman joining us for the meeting today. Amanda is a small business consultant in town that works with Downtown Brattleboro Alliance. So certainly, really appreciate the work that she's done in this past year and a half, doing everything she can to kind of keep these local businesses that we cherish downtown vibrant and doing well. Through Downtown Brattleboro Alliance, she's now started working with doing Everyone Eats, which is a great local program where families or anybody that is in need of a free meal can get a free meal cooked by local restaurants. And I believe that those local restaurants are also using ingredients that are sourced locally as well. So really, it's a program that benefits restaurants, farmers, and then of course the community as a whole, with help feeding struggling folks and families in the area. So we're very lucky to have people like Amanda in town. So without further ado, Amanda Whitman to tell us about everything that's going on with Everyone Eats here in Brattleboro.
Thanks so much, Teddy, and thanks everyone. It's nice to see you all. I just want to tell you how grateful I am to Rotary, just as an individual in town, for all of the support you give our community. I know that you're a generous supporter of the DBA and that you help to fund our beautiful red flower truck. And I know that many of you have volunteered for Everyone Eats, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time explaining the program, but there will be time for questions at the end. So if I miss something and you want to ask, feel free. So thank you all for all that you do. We appreciate you so much. In addition to working with Stephanie on Everyone Eats and other projects, as Teddy mentioned, I do work independently with small business owners. And when the COVID crisis started, I just felt called to pivot and help support local businesses navigate the economic and logistical challenges that we were all facing. And as soon as lockdown began in March 2020, Stephanie jumped into action and began passionately and furiously brainstorming ideas, as she does, for ways to help our downtown and help our businesses have the best chance of surviving the economic devastation of COVID. The Everyone Eats program was one of the beneficial programs that eventually grew from that early brainstorming. Even though we started talking about it in April, it didn't begin until August, but we really had been working on the idea for quite a while. So there are 3 of us on the local Everyone Eats hub team. There are hubs throughout the state in all 14 counties in Vermont. But here in Brattleboro, Stephanie is a project director. I work with the restaurants and handle administration. And Ruby McAdoo is our organizational liaison and our site coordinator. She replaced Frances Huntley, who was our site coordinator in phases 1 and 2 of the project. We're now in phase 3. So when Everyone Eats began in August 2020, it was intended as a pilot program for the state. But the program spread so quickly that we weren't the only community who began in August. And by September 2020, there were hubs all over the state joining Brattleboro in distributing meals to their communities. And here it is, July 2021, and we are still at it. Everyone Eats was founded with 2 key principles in mind. First, that we can maximize the benefit of relief funding with a multiplier effect to reach more than one group of beneficiaries with the same dollar. And that's really, you'll be able to see as we talk about the program how that plays out. And 2, that we can best serve those in need by removing the stigma of receiving and reframing that experience as one that benefits the community on many important levels. Givers are receivers and receivers are givers, and that's the way the world goes around. So we saw unprecedented innovation and collaboration during the COVID crisis, with diverse Vermont organizations working together to meet extraordinary community needs while leveraging finite disaster and recovery funding. So the multiplicity effect was really important for us to be able to help the most people. And Everyone Eats brought together groups at both the state and local levels, including organizations addressing food insecurity, volunteers, service clubs like yours, mutual aid groups, elder care organizations, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Health, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, community action agencies, organizations working in the farm-to-plate space, downtown organizations, and economic development groups. So it was quite a diverse number of voices literally at the table because of this project. And that's really important because my understanding is that historically in our state, many of those organizations don't collaborate or don't feel that they have a reason to work together. And this project has given them a reason, which has been just incredible. We hope that that will continue. So the first phase of the program was made possible by CARES Act funding. And when the CARES Act ended at the end of 2020, we felt compelled to find a way to continue the program. And ultimately, with FEMA's help, we've been able to extend it. We extended it through June 2021. And then as June approached and the Vermont state of emergency was lifted, it was clear that many people were still struggling, as I'm sure you've seen in our community. And particularly as other temporary support programs have ended, it can take time to apply and transition to longer-term support programs like 3 Squares of Vermont, food stamps, and other such programs. So we asked FEMA to help by funding 3 additional months of ramp down, which they agreed to do. So I'd love to show you some of the numbers now. And even though I'm right in the middle of the program, when I looked at these stats, I was absolutely stunned by the impact. I don't know if I've ever seen a downtown program that has brought this much money directly to our local businesses. So if I could share my screen, let's see. There we go. All right. So these are really great numbers. Love our numbers. Our total program budget here in Brattleboro was over $2 million for this entire program. We've distributed 187,000 meals and continue to distribute meals each week. There were 5,000 meals being distributed weekly at the peak of the program, and 1,233 households are reached weekly on average. We have 16 organizations and we had one central hub, which I'll explain later. We now, in the current phase of the program, all meals are being distributed through organizations, but when I talk about the peak of the program, I mean the peak of the need, which happened, I would say, earlier this year and the end of 2020, and we're serving 8 towns. So it's really, really great to see all of this participation. Oops, and now, there we go, oops. Okay, so you may have heard about some of the local restaurants that are involved. We had 27 local restaurants producing meals for the program, and almost all of that $2 million is funding that was paid directly to those restaurants. Pretty incredible. Part of my role is to order the meals from the restaurants, and so when I was ordering 5,000 meals a week, that means that DBA was writing checks for $50,000 a week to our local businesses directly, which is just incredible. And as Teddy mentioned, one of the requirements of the program is that the restaurants involved use a minimum of 10% local ingredients in the meals that they make for Everyone Eats. And so some of our local restaurants are already very well connected within the local restaurant and food producer circles, and others had never done this before. And we thought that if the money that came from the state went to the restaurants and the restaurants needed to use it to buy ingredients, they might as well be using that money to help support other local businesses. So that's part of the multiplicity effect that I talked about. So even though the requirement is a minimum of 10%, which all the restaurants are required to hit every week in terms of 10% of the cost of ingredients, our hub on average has been using 24%. So nearly a quarter of the ingredients in these meals are locally grown or produced right here in the Brattleboro area or in Vermont. So as you can see from this list, there are a lot of farmers that have benefited from this program, and also some value-added food producers. And in particular, we had some great testimony from a farmer from Grateful Greens Farm, who was telling us that he felt that his business would not have remained viable if he hadn't had the support from this program. And we know that that story is not unusual. So we're really, really happy that we've been able to help so many different kinds of businesses through this program. Another very important part of our program is the organizations that are involved. So we did food distribution during the first and second phases. Our food distribution was done half through organizations and half to individuals through walk-up or drive-up meal requests at our hub site on Flat Street. And some of you may have even picked up a meal or picked up meals for others or driven by while it was happening. Um, Monday through Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m., we opened the hub site and anyone who needed a meal could come. And the only requirement was that you needed to have been negatively impacted by COVID. And we kept this broad intentionally because we know that COVID and other such emergencies impact families in different ways, impact individuals in different ways. Some people may have had a hit to their income, but others might be educators or parents who were home all day with multiple children Zoom schooling and just couldn't manage to get a meal on the table and needed help and support. We know that we served doctors and nurses from the ER who had been working long hours and other health professionals who had been really at the front lines of the COVID crisis. Meals went to families and individuals who were quarantining because they were exposed or caring for people who had COVID. It was really quite a diverse range of needs that this program has met and continues to meet. And even though many of us are vaccinated and many of us would like to think that the worst is behind us, some families and some individuals are still struggling quite a bit with income, or that we're still seeing some cases of COVID, and we just want to make sure that everyone has food who needs it. So let's see. I can stop sharing. There we go. So now I'm back. And I wanted to tell you too that one of the other very important facets of this program has been what volunteers have done to make it possible. We've had so many different people from so many facets of our society. We've had middle schoolers, we've had high school students and college students, unemployed adults, or people who work during the day who wanted to do something helpful after their shift was done. We had retirees. Several of our state legislators came to work at the site and help fill orders for meals and meet with people, just because they wanted to see how this went, and also because it feels really good to have your feet on the ground helping other people, as I know all you know, because of the service that you've done through Rotary. And of course, there were members of many local clubs, including yours, and some people were engaged as greeters who would greet the people who walked up or drove up to the site. Some were runners who filled the orders, and we really do believe that choice is dignity, so we offered people plenty of options with the food that we were providing to them. I'm saying this in the past tense because I'm thinking about the individual distribution. It's still happening through organizations, and I'll tell you more about that in a minute. We have had lots of people volunteer as organization delivery drivers, and that's another big way that we get meals out to people. But just going back to explaining a little bit about the phases again. So in phases 1 and 2, which were so August through December 2020 was what we call phase 1, and January through June 2021 is what we call phase 2. We did Monday through Thursday distribution to individuals at Flat Street. People could drive up or walk up. We also did distribution and home delivery through organizations for people who were already directly connected with those organizations. And that would be organizations like Loaves and Fishes and Groundworks and the Boys and Girls Club and Guilford Cares, Dummerston Cares, those types of organizations. We were distributing 5,000 meals a week from 27 restaurants at the peak of the need, and we leveraged the federal relief funding to help as much of the community as possible. When we started talking with FEMA about how we would ramp this program down and what that would look like, they were very clear, and we're also very clear, that what needs to happen now is that we need to help transition people to long-term sustainable programs and relationships to help ease food insecurity as we move forward into the future. Everyone Eats was never intended to be a permanent, long-lasting program. It was intended to be a temporary program. But there are so many successes that we've discovered, learned, and evolved through this program that we want very much to see those successes continue. So at the moment, where we're in phase 3, and we don't expect to distribute meals after phase 3 ends on September 30th, we are necessarily ramping down the number of meals that we're providing. Also, we're doing that not just because of the funding, but because we're seeing the need decrease, which is a really good thing. A lot of people are back to work and experiencing less economic challenge, and some kids are back in daycare. Things are working a little bit more like they should, and there's less stress on people in general. So we're doing a smaller distribution with fewer meals, and there are fewer restaurants participating as more restaurants are opening more fully, and some of them are finding that their economic needs are being met in the usual ways and they're not in need of a lifeline anymore. Others, for various reasons, are still participating and benefiting. Um, so in phase three, rather than having individuals come to the hub site 4 days a week, we have organizations come 2 days a week. And the organizations place an order every few weeks for the people that they serve. They all have different ways of doing it. We believe that there are many good and right ways to serve people, so we leave it up to them how to best to serve the populations that they work with. But the very important message that I want you to take away and into your conversations in the community is that anyone who needs a meal can still get one. And if you go to brattleboro.com/everyoneeats, you can find information on which organizations are continuing to provide meals to people. So, for example, in Brattleboro, if you talk to someone who's in need of a meal or who says, "Gosh, I really wish that Everyone Eats was still distributing to individuals," they can talk to FoodWorks, they can talk to Loaves and Fishes, they can talk to the Root Social Justice Center, and there are others on that list as well. There's contact information so you can help connect people with getting that need met. So we really do depend on the organizations, and we feel that organizations within our community are very, very good at reaching people and helping to identify the need and make sure that those needs are met. So we're partnering with them now, and we intend to continue doing that through the end of September. And as for what happens after that, well, let me first talk a little bit about the successes of the program, some of which we'd like to continue, and then I'll give you a little insight on what is happening going forward, and then we'll wrap up for questions. So we've been so thrilled to see all of the diverse kinds of successes that this program has brought our community and the state. It's brought ongoing economic support to Vermont restaurants, farmers and food producers, and food insecure people. We've, as I mentioned, leveraged federal money in a creative way using multiplicity to increase its impact. So with the same dollar, we're helping a restaurant and a farmer and an eater. We've fostered public and private partnerships as part of this program. We've brought people together at the state level to work on meeting Vermonters' needs effectively in an interdisciplinary, collaborative way, which is really new territory for some of those groups. We've addressed food insecurity without stigma, which we believe has never been done before. It certainly hasn't been done in this way. As I mentioned, the only requirement for receiving a meal was that you felt that you had been negatively impacted by COVID. And there are many people in the community who will not accept charity, who will not step up and say, "I have a need," who just feel so much pride and have their own reasons why they just feel they can't ask for help. But when everyone in the community is doing it for their own reasons, some people were receiving meals because they wanted to ensure that the restaurants continued to have orders, and that was fine. Some people were receiving meals because they just had a lot of stress, and some were receiving meals because they were truly economically burdened. Such diversity, and so wonderful that we were all doing this together. So we've also established a habit of stronger relationships between restaurants and farmers. One of the restaurants that I work with in Brattleboro said that they had not really done much with local ingredients before, but because they were required to as part of the program, they reached out in new ways to find the ingredients that they work with, and they found some that are working really well for them, that their customers enjoy, and they're going to continue that relationship beyond Everyone Eats. So I think that this effect is going to help the local economy in ways that will continue for years to come. We've also introduced people to new types of food and new restaurants. The Boys and Girls Club provided meals to some of their families, and the feedback they got from kids was that it was really cool to eat things they'd never tried before. So that's been great to hear. And we have also heard from restaurants that people who received Everyone Eats meals have been coming to their restaurant and saying, "I really loved that chicken that you made for Everyone Eats, and I'd like to get some for my family. Can I place an order tonight?" And so restaurants are hearing, "I didn't even know you existed. My family never went out to eat much before, but now we're able to, and we think you're great, and we wouldn't have known about you if it weren't for the program." So that was kind of an exciting, unexpected benefit. We also provided safe and meaningful volunteer opportunities during a global crisis, which it's pretty hard to come by when you're on lockdown and you're home all the time and you really would like to do something meaningful, and there aren't a lot of opportunities for that. So we created a safe outdoor space and a lot of different ways for people to step up and help, which felt good. As I mentioned before, we reminded everyone that giving is receiving and receiving is giving. We encouraged people to give all that they could at any level they were able. We engaged the current community support infrastructure and enabled mutual aid organizations to connect directly with people in their homes, which is not something they ordinarily have the privilege of. We raised morale among all types of participants during a challenging time, which we believe has a positive impact on mental health in addition to all of these other areas of benefit. And we gathered the entire community, that's the everyone in Everyone Eats, together for a meaningful cause. So going forward, there's a lot of conversation at the state level in various ways about putting together a group, a think tank, if you will, for how we can take these successes into the future after the program, after this iteration of the program ends, and maybe help remove some of the stigma from our mass feeding projects, for example, how we can continue to encourage restaurants to use ingredients from local sources, and how we can continue to find creative ways to take federal funding and leverage it in multiple ways at once. The impact that Everyone Eats has had in Brattleboro and throughout the state continues to evolve. It's a positive force for multiple different sectors of our community here in Brattleboro, for people throughout the state, and on the habits and ideas that people bring to cross-organizational collaboration, food insecurity measures, economic development, and so much more. So we look forward to providing meals to the community through the end of September and working to keep our successes alive as we move forward into the future. And I would be so grateful if any and all of you would help us get the message out to anyone who you talk to who, like I said, either received meals and then didn't realize that they could continue getting them through organizations, or just kind of letting people know that this is happening and this started right here in Brattleboro. We have such an amazing community here and so many people who are willing to step up and help. It's great to keep telling that story over and over again, so I encourage you to join me in doing that. So thank you for your attention and for letting me talk about our program, which I'm just so happy to do, so proud of. I'm happy to take some questions now, but I also wanted to say that if anyone has additional questions after this presentation is over, or you'd like to reach out and contact me, my email is amanda@brattleboro.com. It's pretty easy to remember, so feel free to be in touch anytime if you want to hear more about where Everyone Eats is going or any of the other programs that DBA is supporting. So now I'm happy to take questions.
Thanks, Amanda. And could you post that email and the website on the chat for us too?
I'll do that right now.
Right. Any questions for Amanda? Teddy?
Here we are. Yeah, I just would like to issue a brag for Amanda and Everyone Eats. What an inspiring job that they've done. Of course, unprecedented times that we were faced with, and the amount of moving parts and logistics, and matched with the just overwhelming success it seems like the program has had. It's just been a smashing home run. So thank you very much, Amanda. And really, we're lucky to have you in our community.
Thanks so much, Teddy. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. $20 brag, President Phil.
Awesome. Other questions?
I was told you're a talkative bunch and a curious group that has a lot of questions, so I hope that's really true. I also did want to say that when I talked with Stephanie about doing this presentation, she said that she always really enjoys the opportunities that she's had to come and talk with all of you. She said, you're going to have a great time, Amanda. So ask me some things.
Don't see.
Oh, okay. I'll say something.
Jennifer, okay.
No, I've really been admiring Everyone Eats because my church, Center Church, hosts Loaves and Fishes, which I know cooks a lot of food for the programs. And I've just been incredibly impressed with everything that you guys have been able to accomplish over the past year plus. So thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. Yeah, Loaves and Fishes continues to be one of the organizations that helps us get meals out to people, and we really could not do it without all of the people in all these various groups who've stepped in to be a part of the program. Oh, that's a great question from Joshua Goldberg. Does Everyone Eats need volunteers for the rest of phase 3? What a good question. So our team and our hub is not in need of volunteers for phase 3. However, I'm going to bet that the organizations that we work with are probably very glad to hear from anyone who's interested in helping them with the work that they do in the community. And their work will continue long after Everyone Eats is done. So I would encourage you to get in touch. If you go to our website, I put the link in the chat, brattleboro.com/everyoneeats. You can see which organizations are involved. And please don't hesitate to reach out to them and ask them. You can ask them if there's a way that you can help with the Everyone Eats program. Some of them are still looking for help with delivery and so forth. I'm curious to know, is there anyone here who tried an Everyone Eats meal? Did anyone go and pick one up? Rob, great. Or did you pick one up? Did anyone pick meals up for friends or neighbors? That was one of the things we encouraged folks to do as well. Jennifer did. Great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, it feels to me like one of those things that years from now we might look back at from time to time and talk about and say, remember that time we all came together in the community and we helped each other out, and we did this thing that seemed impossible, but it turned out to be amazing. I hope that that will be a model for lots of future projects as well.
The idea of the dollar going so far and supporting so many different groups too is such a cool idea and really inspiring. I think our community should really do the best we can to kind of maximize that impact going forward.
Well, thanks again, Amanda. It was that's a great program and a very good presentation. We appreciate you coming today. And I'm sure if folks have questions, they've got your email now. They can send you an email as well.